When I was in elementary school, I was such a bookworm. I always had a book in hand, had a book on my desk at school, was the kid who would read under the desk while the teacher was talking. I was just always reading as much as I could. So I have a lot of books that I used to read when I was younger that were my absolute favorites. There are quite a few that I've reread over the years, like the Harry Potter series, In a Heartbeat by Loretta Ellsworth, Life Just Got Real by Sadie Robertson, The Mysterious Benedict Society. But today I'm going to be reading some books that I genuinely have not read since I was a kid. I'm so excited. You know, one of the things that I've noticed as I've gotten older is that the hobbies that I have the most fun doing are ones that make me feel like I'm a kid again. So I'm so excited to read books that I loved when I was a kid. Let's get going. So the first book that I'm going to be reading in this video is The Boxcar Children by Gertrude Chandler Warner. If you've never heard of The Boxcar Children, it is about 4 siblings who have just recently become orphans. They run away and end up living in this boxcar. What is it with kids being fascinated with the idea of like having to be self-sufficient and like living with no adults? Because I loved The Boxcar Children. I loved this book specifically. I loved Nim's Island, you know, the movie about the girl who is on a deserted island by herself and has to learn how to keep herself alive. When I was outside with my neighbors, we would always play this game where we would pretend we were living on an island and we'd have to go around and collect things so we could survive without our parents on this island. Like, why is it that kids have such a fascination with that? I don't know. Because of that, I absolutely loved this book. I used to make my brothers play Boxcar Children with me. I was fascinated with this book. I will admit, I have actually never read any of the other Boxcar Children books. I cannot tell you how many times I read this book when I was a kid. I'm just so excited to be super nostalgic. I had forgotten how dark this book truly is. So it centers around 4 siblings, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. And the book opens with them having just moved into a new house with their father. The next page, he's dead. He's dead. And the baker and his wife, who don't even know these kids, are talking about sending them to their grandfather, who's like their only living family. And they are terrified of this man. They are terrified of their grandfather because he didn't like their father for some reason, and so they're terrified that if they go to live with their grandfather that he's not gonna like them and he's gonna treat them badly. So they run away from home and end up sleeping in haystacks until they find this boxcar that they decide that they're just gonna live in. The oldest kid is 13. He's 13 and he takes it upon himself to go find work in town so that he can support his family, and his 12-year-old sister is like at home playing the little housewife, like cooking meals and fixing up the boxcar into a home. It's very 1920s, which is in fact when this book came out. Kind of dark for a children's novel. Reading The Boxcar Children. Oh my gosh, it was fun, like rereading something I used to love as a kid, just like seeing all the things that I noticed that completely went over my head when I was a kid. You know, like thinking about the fact that like these kids were literally living in an abandoned train car, and the guy that the oldest brother, who was 13 by the way, was working for, knew that they were living in an abandoned train car and didn't say anything to anybody about it. He just let them keep living in a train car. The next book that I'm going to be reading is The Westing Games by Ellen Raskin. This one's an old book too. I used to read it in like the 2nd and the 3rd grade. It was in my teacher's classroom library. This one kind of started my love for stories like Knives Out and The Inheritance Games, because very similar to those ones, a very rich guy dies, although in this one, in his will, he has planned out a little game for 16 seemingly unrelated people to play and figure out who is going to inherit his estate. You're seeing little snippets from all of the different cast of characters. There's like 16 different heirs or potential heirs. It's just kind of fun, you know? So I'm about 2/3 of the way through the Westing game, and it is funny how people get so paranoid in this book. In the will reading, it said like heirs beware, but then everybody starts stealing from each other and pointing fingers at each other, and somebody starts setting bombs off in people's apartments. And also, like, now that I'm older, I know what the game clues mean. Which I definitely didn't know what they meant when I was reading this book in like 2nd and 3rd grade. This morning I finished reading The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin, and it was such a fun time. I think I said this already, but it's interesting the things that you pick up now that you didn't pick up when you were younger. Like, there are still like so many things that are left open-ended for you to draw your own conclusion to, even after the end of that book. And some of the things that are said to have kind of been like glossed over through the end of the book, you're like, wait a minute. What do you mean? But why? Why is that? You just didn't care to dig deeper into that? This book has a very similar feeling to both Knives Out and The Inheritance games, which are two of my favorite things in this entire world. So, of course I love those things now, if this is a book that I used to love in the 3rd grade. Now, the final book that I'm going to be reading in this video is Heist Society by Ali Carter. I was recently reminded of this book. I bought it at Katie Budget Books when I was passing through town back at the beginning of July. And honestly, I had forgotten about this book, but this is another book that I discovered in a teacher's classroom library. I believe it was my 6th grade English teacher. I read this book so many times, like people should have been concerned. From what I remember about this book, you follow a teenage girl who has grown up in a family of career criminals. She maybe has to team up with a hot guy to rob an art museum. Because you know that's just how things go, right? That's how you do things. I am so excited to read this book because I honestly do not remember like anything about it. I am ready to crack open this book and to see what it was that 6th grade little me was obsessed with about this book. I started reading Heist Society. I'm about 30 pages in. We're following Kat Bishop, who was raised in a family of career criminals. You pick up the book and Kat Bishop is at a super elite boarding school because she wants to leave the family business behind. However, her best friend, Hale, has told her that her father needs help because a super powerful mobster was just robbed of a bunch of his artwork, and the only suspect is Kat's father, but he didn't do it. So now they have to try to figure out how to get the painting, how to find the paintings, and how to get the paintings back so that the mobster doesn't try to off them all. How fun! Heist Society by Ali Carter. I read this whole thing in like 2 hours. I was locked in the whole time. Granted, this book is only 287 pages. It's a lot shorter than the books that I usually read, but I think that the book being shorter made for a more interesting story because Ali Carter had to be really intentional with the details and the scenes that she added into this book, so it just made for a very intriguing story. This is actually the first book in a series, which I don't think I knew that. I will be continuing the series. This book is very fun. It's, I guess you would call it a middle grade heist book. It's so very fun. Anyways, that was me rereading some of my childhood favorite books. I had a very fun time reading these books. Kind of reminded me why I love to read in the first place. If you have not already done so, I highly recommend rereading books that you used to love when you were younger too. Anyways, guys, that is all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up to let me know that you enjoy this type of content. Comment down below your favorite childhood books and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content in the future. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week and I will see you guys next time. Bye!